After years of trying, my wife and I finally got pregnant. Our neighbor had always been nice, until she showed up crying on our porch and said, "That was supposed to be my baby. You don't deserve her." We were shocked. Then she claimed my wife had stolen her donor embryo. We laughed, until the fertility clinic called, saying a woman had been harassing their staff for months using our names. When we checked the clinic's access logs, her email was there. And the name she used to book the first consultation? Was my wife's maiden name. My name's Rick. I'm 39, living in a quiet neighborhood in Dayton, Ohio. My wife Marla and I have been trying to have a baby for years. 7, to be exact. It's been the hardest part of our marriage. Between doctor visits, procedures, tears, and prayers, we nearly gave up more than once. But last spring, after a donor embryo transfer, Marla got pregnant. We were over the moon. We cried. We held each other in silence for a long time. I remember thinking, this is it. This is finally it. We told our families, her sister in Cincinnati, my parents who lived just outside of town. We even told a few of our neighbors. Most of them we only waved to, but Gail had always been friendly. She lived across the street and slightly to the left. Early 40s, single, no kids, always tending to her flower beds or walking her little brown mutt, Eddie. Gail was the kind of neighbor you're grateful for. She brought over muffins when we moved in. Took in our mail when we went to see Marla's dad in Florida. Once, when Marla had a bad reaction to a medication, Gail drove her to urgent care while I was stuck at work. So when we told her about the pregnancy, she was thrilled. At least, that's what we thought. She asked questions. A lot of them. About the donor. About the embryo transfer. Even about what clinic we used. At the time, I didn't think anything of it. People are curious. And Gail seemed harmless. That changed the night she showed up on our porch crying. It was cold that night. First snow of the season. Marla and I were finishing dinner when I heard the knock. I opened the door and there was Gail, barefoot in slippers, wearing a robe over pajamas. Her eyes were red and swollen. "Gail?" I said. "What's going on?" She didn't answer. She was staring at Marla's belly. Then she said something I'll never forget. "That was supposed to be my baby." I felt my stomach drop. Marla stepped beside me, confused. "What are you talking about?" "You don't deserve her," Gail said. "That baby is mine. You took her." At first, I honestly thought she was drunk. Or having a breakdown. Marla laughed, not out of cruelty, but pure shock. She was trying to make sense of it. "You took my embryo," Gail said again. "You used my donor." "I saw it," Marla said. "Gail, this embryo came from a donor, yes, but it wasn't yours." Gail started crying harder. "You used my embryo. I was supposed to be her mother." That's when I stepped in front of Marla and told Gail to go home. I didn't yell. I didn't get angry. I just said, "You need to leave now." She stood there a moment longer, then turned and walked away. We didn't sleep that night. The next day, I called her brother. He'd helped her move in and introduced her around the neighborhood. I explained what happened. He sighed heavily and said, "Gail's had some problems in the past. She's not well." He didn't say more than that. Just promised to check in on her. We figured that was the end of it. It wasn't. A week later, our fertility clinic called. The manager said someone had been calling their office for months, using our names. She'd called under Marla's maiden name, demanding information about donor embryos and our records. She told staff she was Marla Gregory and wanted updates on her pregnancy. They had flagged it as suspicious when the woman became aggressive and started threatening legal action. The kicker? The woman had booked an appointment months ago using our home address. We drove to the clinic that same day. Sat down with the head of administration. They showed us access logs to their online portal. One email stood out, gail.tompkins7@gmail.com. Her house's IP address was logged multiple times. When they pulled her initial consultation form, I felt my hands start to shake. It had Marla's maiden name, our home address, and even the name of our OBGYN listed as her doctor. She impersonated us, I said out loud. One of the receptionists came in and confirmed she'd spoken to the woman over the phone. She recognized Gail from a photo we showed her. That's when we knew this wasn't confusion or a breakdown. This was planned. After we left the clinic, Marla didn't say a word the whole drive home. Her hand stayed on her belly the entire time. I kept glancing at her, wondering if she was going to cry, scream, or collapse. But she just stared out the window like she was somewhere else. That night, she finally said it. "I don't feel safe here anymore." I didn't either. But we didn't want to leave our home. We'd put everything into making this a safe place to raise our daughter. Still, we had to be smart. So the next day, I bought cameras, one for the front porch, one for the backyard, one inside by the nursery. We started locking everything, even during the day. A few days later, Gail was back. She stood across the street, just watching. No dog. No coat. Just staring at our house. I didn't go out. But I made sure she saw me close the blinds. Then the letters started. One in our mailbox. Then 2 more taped to our door. They weren't threats exactly. Just handwritten notes that said things like, "You know the truth. God sees what you've done. She'll come home to me." We called the police. They said without a clear threat, there wasn't much they could do. We filed a report anyway. The next day, someone egged our house. 24 eggs, smashed all over the windows and porch. Our cameras caught a figure in a hoodie, but the face was covered. I sent the footage to the cops. They added it to the report. Nothing came of it. A week before Marla's due date, something happened that pushed everything over the edge. We came home from her final checkup and found the front door unlocked. I always lock it. Always. It wasn't forced open. Nothing looked stolen. But the nursery? Someone had been in there. The baby blanket Marla's mom had knitted was missing from the crib. In its place was a stuffed bear. One we'd never seen before. It was old. Worn. And on its chest, stitched in faded pink thread, was the name, Ellie. That wasn't the name we chose. But it was the name Gail had mentioned on her Facebook profile months ago. I remember now. Back when we first met her, I glanced at her page out of curiosity. She had a post that said, "One day, I'll hold you in my arms, Ellie." Marla broke down right there. She curled up on the nursery floor, shaking. I called 911. The police came fast this time. We showed them the video again. Nothing new, same hoodie, same build, same covered face. They dusted the bear for prints but didn't promise much. We gave them Gail's name. They said they talked to her. But when they went to her house, she was gone. The house was empty. No furniture. No dog. Like she had vanished overnight. The officer said the house had been listed for rent online. She was gone before they even showed up. Marla slept in our bedroom with the light on for the next 5 nights. Then, a week after our daughter was born, we got a letter in the mail. No return address. Just a white envelope. Inside was a photo. It was us, me, Marla, and the baby, outside the hospital. We never saw anyone take that picture. On the back, in red ink, it said, "I'm not done. She's still mine." We took that photo straight to the police. This time, they actually took us seriously. The detective on our case, Detective Healy, looked like he'd seen it all. He flipped the photo over, read the message, and finally said, "All right. Now it's stalking. This is actionable." They opened a formal investigation. Pulled footage from the hospital. Checked nearby traffic cameras. One grainy shot from a street cam showed a gray sedan idling across from the hospital entrance the day we were discharged. The car had a dealership plate cover from up near Columbus, 2 hours away. Healy ran the plates. The car wasn't stolen. It had been rented. Under a fake name. But the payment was linked to a debit card. The card was traced back to a local bank account. That account belonged to Gail Tompkins. It had been opened 3 years ago. She used it for small purchases. A few ATM withdrawals. Nothing big. But here's where things got worse. That account had a linked safety deposit box at a local bank. With a warrant, police accessed the box. Inside, they found photocopies of Marla's medical records, a USB with audio recordings of our conversations in our backyard, a baby blanket that didn't belong to us but had our last names stitched into the corner, and one more thing, a printed birth plan, signed Marla G. Except it wasn't Marla's handwriting. It was forged. She had planned to walk into the hospital and claim to be Marla if she ever got the chance. She had mapped it out down to the room number. She had even researched which nurses would be on shift that day. The detective told us we had to consider leaving town. At least temporarily. We couldn't believe it. We were the victims, and yet we were the ones being told to run. But Marla looked at me, holding our baby, and said, "I don't care. We're not safe here." So we packed up and stayed with her sister in Cincinnati. Meanwhile, police issued a warrant for Gail. But she was nowhere. Her social media went dark. Phone disconnected. No known job. The property management company said she'd paid 6 months' rent in advance, then vanished. 2 months passed. We started to breathe again. Marla began sleeping through the night. Our daughter, whom we named Lucy, was thriving. Then one night, while I was outside throwing trash in the bins at her sister's place, I heard a voice from the street. Just one word. Lucy. I froze. Looked around. Nothing. But when I got back inside, Marla was holding Lucy close, pale as a ghost. She'd gotten a notification on her phone from our doorbell cam back home in Dayton. Someone had walked up to the door, stared into the camera, and whispered, "She belongs to me." It was Gail. She was back. We showed the video to the police again. This time, they launched a full manhunt. Detective Healy called it a potential child abduction threat. They put an alert out across state lines, flagged her ID and known aliases, and issued a protective order for our entire family. But Gail didn't wait for them to catch her. She made her move just 3 nights later. We were still at Marla's sister's place. It was late, just after 2 a.m., when the power went out. At first I thought it was just a storm. But when I looked outside, the rest of the block still had lights. Only our house was dark. Then the baby monitor cut off. I ran to Lucy's room, heart pounding. She was there, thank God, but the window was cracked open. Just a little. Just enough. I didn't wait. I grabbed her, told Marla to call 911, and stayed in that room with a bat in my hands until the cops arrived. The police found fresh footprints by the back fence. And a ladder pushed under the window. She had been that close. The next day, I installed a full security system. Cameras. Motion lights. Panic buttons. But Marla wasn't the same. She hardly spoke. She wouldn't sleep unless Lucy was on her chest. And I couldn't blame her. I was angry. Angry at the cops for not catching her. Angry at the clinic for their weak security. But most of all, I was angry at myself. I should have seen the signs earlier. I should have done more. So I did something I wasn't proud of. I found her brother's number and I threatened him. I told him if he didn't help find her, I'd tell the media everything. That she got donor access to a clinic. That she impersonated my wife. That she almost stole a baby. He finally cracked. "She's staying with a guy she met online," he said. "Some rural place outside Toledo. He doesn't know the full story. Thinks she's running from an abusive ex." I gave the address to Detective Healy. They moved fast. And this time, they got her. She was hiding in a basement with a packed bag, baby clothes, and a forged birth certificate that had Lucy's name, but her listed as the mother. She didn't go quietly. She screamed as they took her away. "You don't deserve her! That baby is mine!" Gail was charged with multiple counts: stalking, attempted abduction, identity theft, trespassing, fraud. But here's the part ones still struggle with. They gave her a plea deal. 6 years. With mental health treatment and parole review after 3. I wanted to rage. I wanted her locked away forever. But the truth? She was sick. Deeply sick. Still, that didn't mean I forgave her. Not after what she took from us. Not just the fear, the trauma, but the joy we should have had bringing our daughter into the world. She robbed us of that. 3 months ago, we moved back to Dayton. Different house, different neighborhood. We don't talk about Gail anymore. But sometimes, when Marla's rocking Lucy to sleep, I catch her staring at the window. Watching the street. Just in case. Me? I bought a gun. Learned how to use it. Because if anything like that ever happens again, I won't wait for the police. And if that makes me the bad guy, so be it.